Bhakti Jana Bhava Jaya Girivaranari Jaya Girivaranari Bhakti Jana Bhava Jaya Girivaranari Jaya Girivaranari Jaya Bhakti Jana Bhava Jaya Girivaranari Jaya Girivaranari Jaya Bhakti Jana Bhava Jaya Girivaranari Jaya Girivaranari Yasodhanandana Prajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Prajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Prajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Prajana Ranjana Namnadhiya Vanachari Namnadhiya Bhaktivedanta Swami Shilo Bhavad Ki Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavad Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glories to the Assembly Devotees, all glories to the Assembly Devotees, all glories to the Assembly Devotees, all glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga, glories to Shishi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namasritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtapraye Svabhadrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavad-Yutam Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Nashtiki Yam Ravajantam Anupedam Apeda Vidyam Dvaipayano Virahakatarajubhava Putreti Tanmayatayo Taravo Vinedus Tam Sarvabhuta Hridayam Munimanatosmi. We're reading today Srimad Bhagavatam Purana, Canto 3, Chapter 20, Conversation between Maitreya and Vidura, text number 18. Sasarja Chayaya Avidyam Panchaparvanam Agrataha Tamisram Andhadamisram Tamaha Mohaha Mahatamaha Sasarja Chaya Vidyayam Sasarja Chaya Vidyam Panchaparvanamagrataha Tamisram Mandatamisram Tamomo Mahatamaha Tamamoho Mahatamaha Sasarja Chaya Vidyam Panchaparvanamagrataha Tamisram Mandatamisram Tamomo Mahatamaha
Sasarja Chaya Vidyam Panchaparvanamagrataha Tamisram Mandatamisram Tamo Moho Mahatamaha
Sasarja Chaya Vidyam
Sasarja created Chayaya with his shadow Avidyam ignorance Panchaparvanam 5 varieties Agrataha first of all Tamisram Tamisra Andhatamisram Andhatamisra Tamaha Tamas Mohaha Moha Mahatamaha Mahatamas or Mahava. Translation. First of all, Brahma created from his shadow the coverings of ignorance of the conditioned souls. They are 5 in number and are called Tamisra, Antatamisra, Tamas, Moha, and Maha Moha. Purport. The conditioned souls or living entities who come to the material world to enjoy self-gratification are covered in the beginning by 5 different conditions. The first condition is a covering of Tamisra or anchor. Constitutionally, each and every living entity has minute independence. It is misuse of that minute independence for the conditioned soul to think that he can enjoy like the Supreme Lord, or to think, why shall I not be a free enjoyer like the Supreme Lord? This forgetfulness of his constitutional position is due to anger or envy. The living entity, being eternally part and parcel, servitor of the Supreme Lord, can never by constitution be an equal enjoyer with the Lord. When he forgets this, however, he tries to be one with him. His condition is called Tamisra. Even in the field of spiritual realization, this Tamisra mentality of the living entity is hard to overcome. In trying to get out of the entanglement of material life, there are many who want to be one with the Supreme. Even in their transcendental activities, the slower grade mentality of Tamisra continues. Under Tamisra involves considering death to be the ultimate end. The atheists generally think that the body is the self, and that everything is therefore ended with the end of the body. Thus, they want to enjoy material life as far as possible during the existence of the body. Their theory is, as long as you live, you should live prosperously. Never mind whether you commit all kinds of so-called sins, you must eat sumptuously, beg, borrow, and steal, and if you think that by stealing and borrowing you are being entangled in sinful activities for which you will have to pay, then just forget this misconception, because after death everything is finished. No one is responsible for anything he does during his life. This atheistic conception of life is killing human civilization, for it is without knowledge of the continuation of eternal life. This Antatamisra ignorance is due to tamas, the condition of not knowing anything about the spirit soul is called tamas. This material world is also generally called tamas because 99% of its living entities are ignorant of their identity as a soul. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maya ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Almost everyone is thinking that he is this body. He has no information of the spirit soul guided by this misconception and always saying, this is my body, and anything in relationship with this body is mine. For such misguided living entities, sex life is the background of material existence. Actually, the conditioned souls in ignorance of this material world are simply guided by sex life, and as soon as they get the opportunity for sex life, they become attached to so-called home, motherland, children, wealth, and opulence. All these attachments increase moha, or the illusion of the bodily concept of life. Janasya Mahoya. Or the illusion of the bodily concept of life also increases. Thus, the idea that I am this body and everything belongs to this body is mine also increases,
and the whole world is put into Maya. Sectarian societies, families, and nationalities are created, and they fight with one another. Mahamoha means to be mad after material enjoyment, especially in this age of Kali. Everyone is overwhelmed by the madness to accumulate paraphernalia for material enjoyment. These definitions are very nicely given in Vishnu Purana, wherein it is said, Tamo viveko moha syat antakarana vibhramaha. Maha mohas tu vigyeyo gramya bhoga sukhaishana. Maranam hyandra tamishram krodha uchyate. Avidya pancha parvaisha pradubhuta mahatmanaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sasarja chayaya vidyam panchaparvanam agrataha tamisram andatamisram tamumoha mahatamaha. First of all, Brahma created from his shadow the coverings of ignorance of the conditioned souls. They are 5 in number, and they are called Tamisra, Andatamisra, Tamas, Moha, and Mahamoha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vinaya Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shuddhavani Paschatya Devashakarine Vanchakalpatarvishcha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yantah Pravishya Mama Vachi Mama Prasuptam Sanjeevayata Kiva Shakti Darasvanam Nanyam Sthasvacharana Shravanat Vagadim Pranam Namo Bhagavate Purushaya Tunyam Svasyasti Vishwasya Kalam Prasidayam Dayantu Budhani Shivam Nipodiyam Anascha Padram Bhajatat Tadamukshajay Adeshitam No Madhirate Hayatuki. Hare Krishna. So I'm very happy and honored to be able to speak in front of all of you in this South Bangalore temple. Hari Chaitanya Prabhu is here to correct me if I say something wrong. And it's just natural to say something wrong because we're all in this condition of ignorance, which is so nicely described by Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Brahma, by the order of the Supreme Lord, first of all created conditions for us to live happily in this world. And the only condition for us to live happily in this world is to make us ignorant. Ignorance is a necessary prerequisite of our happiness in this material world. Without ignorance, we cannot be happy. Those who are stupid enough to be knowledgeable, they cannot be happy. All of you are in this category. You spoiled your material life. So first of all, very mercifully, by the desire of the Supreme Lord, Lord Brahma created the preliminary condition, prerequisites for living entities to enjoy this material world, to enjoy the sense gratification. And that's exactly the primary purpose by which we are coming to this material world. And this material world would not serve the purpose if the ignorance would not be created first. Therefore, it's very appropriate that this Panchaparvani, these 5 coverings of ignorance are being described, are being created, first of all, by the Lord Brahma. Agrataha, this is the first creation. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, these 5 coverings of ignorance are described twice. The first time they are described in the 12th chapter of the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Srila Prabhupada very beautifully also describes them in the purport. It's basically the same 5 coverings of ignorance, and at that time also Patanjali Muni with his Yoga Sutra, comparing these 5 universal creations by Lord Brahma with minute manifestation of ignorance within us. And I will try to explain this because it's very important for us to understand the anatomy of our ignorance. It's very important for us to understand the layers of ignorance which are there, and how this ignorance perverts our consciousness, how this ignorance actually influences our every thought which we have, every action, every word which we speak. So this is extremely important information for us to understand and to assimilate very thoroughly how the conditions of this material life are being created by Lord Brahma, and how they are all ransoms of these conditions, how we're all prisoners of this ignorance. Because every living entity, even though they're suffering, somehow or other, they have the hope that they will enjoy. Even at the very last moment of life, this hope is still there. It is said, there's a nice saying that the hope dies last. Everything else is already lost, is already dead. You're almost dead, but the hope is still alive. You still have the hope that I will enjoy, I will make it, I will prove that I'm the best, I'm the enjoyer of this world, somehow or other. So this starts from the early childhood. Every teenager has these great hopes, I will be very special, I will have hopes. And every old man, has some slightly diminished hope that despite of everything else, he will somehow or other become happy and he will make it there. Sometimes they say, I had such a good life. So let's get into it and let's see how it all works. Even though Prabhupada says that the first covering of ignorance is Tamisra, in the purport to the 2nd verse of the 12th chapter, he compares, as I said, this verse, he parallels this verse or these 5 coverings of ignorance with the 5 kleshas of Patanjali Muni from Yoga Sutras. And there it is very clearly said that the background of existence, and actually in this purport, Srila Prabhupada also says that the background of the existence is tamas, tama. Using the terminology of Patanjali Muni, it's avidya. Avidya is the background. Avidya is the, as Patanjali Muni puts it in Yoga Sutra, is the breeding ground of our karma. It's something where the seeds of our karma are all fructifying and giving us the experiences of this life. In the 2nd chapter of Yoga Sutra, it's very beautifully described there. So avidya is the first covering. And little later I will try to explain why in this particular verse it starts with Tamisra. Why not with avidya? Why not with tamas? This avidya or tamas, as Prabhupada said, 99% of the people of this world, they are in tamas. And it's definitely a very gracious proposal that 99% of people are in tamas. It's actually 108% of people of this world are all in tamas. Because what is tamas? What is avidya? Very beautifully, Vyasadeva, the commentator of Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, he says that avidya is the condition of our mind when we take something which is not eternal, something which is not pure to be pure, to start with. What is not pure is the body. But we look at the body of somebody else and we think, oh, such a nice body. You know, it's covered with pus and sweat and all kinds of abominable actions, substances. But we look at somebody and we say, oh, such a beautiful girl, such a beautiful boy, I want to enjoy this body. So, first of all, we don't understand that this body is actually dirty stuff. You know, if we would understand the extent of the dirtiness of the body, oh my goodness, we would not try to make this completely strange attempt to enjoy with this body. You know, can you enjoy with the piece of stool? You're going in the street and you see such a nice piece of stool. Let me enjoy it. How you can enjoy with the piece of stone? This body is not much different, really speaking. It's so, you know, mucus and bile, and nevertheless, we have this very heroic attempt. Let's enjoy this body, and we think this is something worthwhile. So therefore, in Yoga Sutras, the first ignorance, the first manifestation of ignorance is to take something which is impure by nature, by its constitution, and think it's pure, think it's something really, you know. So many poets, they write such a poetry, very Uttama Shloka poetry. The choicest verses. Glorifying the enjoyment of this material world, glorifying this body and the byproducts and the sexual activities. And then it is said the next manifestation of ignorance which is there, of avidya which is there, of tamas, is to take something which is not eternal to be eternal. And basically, that's our relationship with this material world, because somehow or other, and of course with this body, but somehow or other, we want to live in this material world. We want to continue living in this material world, and we consider the situation in this material world. We always hope. It's amazing. It's amazing manifestation of ignorance of the living entities, how everyone hopes that somehow or other in this material world, the situation will become stable. Now the new year is coming, and everyone will be just, you know, wishing everyone, you know, that this year was not really right, but the next year will be definitely very happy. Happy New Year. It means obtain your stability in life. What is this? Shubha Labha. So get something stable, you know. Forget it. This world is not stable. This world is being destroyed at every moment of time. Everything is being destroyed. It's destined to be destroyed. It's Kshanika. It's Kshanabhangura. It's today, now it's here. Tomorrow it's not here. Therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he explains when Krishna speaks about Ashvatha, this tree of material world in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that why he calls it Ashvatha. Why not some other name? Why not Tulasi? Tulasi is also a tree. He says Ashva Stha. It's something which is here today, but Swaha, tomorrow it's not there. Ashva, tomorrow, Ashva Stha. It's already not there. Today I'm here, today I'm enjoying, but tomorrow it's not there. You know, tomorrow I look around, it's not the same Bangalore as it was yesterday. Something else is there. Of course, we don't notice it, and therefore we think it's so nice. But you come some 10 years later or 15 years later to the place where you were born, and you have this nostalgia, it's such a nice place I was born, and you look there, nothing is there. I was born in Tashkent, and I like, as everyone else in this material world, every conditioned entity likes the place where he was born, became attached. When I was 10 years old, there was a huge earthquake, and everything was mercilessly destroyed. Nothing was there. My whole house was destroyed. Somehow I escaped this. Everything was destroyed. Nothing was there. So that's the nature of the material world, and that's the ignorance when we think that this material world will become stable. Happy New Year. Until we become a nice place. Therefore, Krishna says, Dukhavayam Ashashvata. The main characteristic of this material world is that it's Ashashvata. It's not eternal, it's temporary. And it's very difficult for us to grasp this idea because we revolt against it. It's repulsive for us to think that this is all very temporary. We still somehow or other, ahanyahani bhutani gachanti hayamalayam, yam yam stavara vichanti, yam yam stavara vichanti. Yudhishthira Maharaj says that, it's the most amazing thing. Kimascharyamadha. The most amazing thing is that everyone knows that everyone goes Yamalayam, to the abode of Yama. Yam yam stavaram ichanti. And nevertheless, everyone wants stavaram ichanti. Everyone wants to be stable in this world. Congratulations. Welcome to the material world. Welcome to this world of ignorance. How this ignorance deeply penetrating our consciousness. It has such a deep roots within our consciousness. And then the next manifestation of ignorance or tamas, what is this avidya, is that we take something which is actually the cause of suffering to be the cause of enjoyment. That's another perversion of our consciousness. We think that material enjoyment is enjoyable. Material enjoyment is sufferable. That's what you're supposed to do with the material enjoyment. And again, our consciousness actually revolts against this. Our heart doesn't like to hear this. We want to hear something nice, why these Hare Krishna people are so pessimistic? Why? But it's a fact. It's a fact of life. Material enjoyment is the cause of suffering. Because, and Patanjali Muni very beautifully proves it. He says, why the material enjoyment? There are 4 reasons. He gives 4 or 5 reasons why the material enjoyment is the cause of suffering. Okay, you enjoy it. Fine. No problem. You enjoy material enjoyment. What is the result? You get attached to this material enjoyment. And then when you lose this material enjoyment, and sooner or later you will lose this material enjoyment, because the nature of this world is that you will lose everything. So, because you will lose this material enjoyment, you will suffer more if you are not attached. If you are not attached to material enjoyment, okay, you lose it, no problem. But if you are attached, you will suffer more. And then, because you are attached, you become addicted to it. You start suffering because you're not supplied with this material enjoyment. All these people, the drugs, are they enjoyable? I don't really know, but they say they are. All this heavy drugs, all this narcotics, this stuff, people get some enjoyment, but what is the result? They suffer like hell. They take alcohol, they take this, and then, they become addicted to it. They become totally dependent on it. And this is how Patanjali Muni, I will not get into all the details, but this is how Patanjali Muni proves that actually, and what to speak of the, how to say this, the very detrimental nature of material enjoyment or over-enjoyment to the material body. Actually, when we over-enjoy these facilities are given to us by this material body, we're nearing our death because the resources of this body is limited. And when you enjoy sex life, it's actually the sex life, enjoyment of the sex life, Srimad Bhagavatam compares with the enjoyment of your own blood. Like a camel is enjoying the blood which is coming from his own tongue by chewing these thorny bushes. And he says, such a nice bushes. He's actually enjoying the taste of his own blood. And he thinks, this is the bushes which give me enjoyment. No, this is your own blood. When you enjoy sex life, you enjoy the taste of your own blood. Literally. Because what is semen or whatever? It's your blood. Transformation of your blood through the, according to Ayurveda, there's, you get from so many, amount of your blood, you get one drop of semen. And if you do it, if you try to enjoy it, you enjoy your own blood. Literally. It's not just a poetic metaphor. It's a medical fact. It's a scientific fact. So when we think that, there is enjoyment in this world, there is ananda in this world, there's no doubt about it. It's there. But it's actually causes of suffering. And if we try to find happiness in the material enjoyment, we're making tragic mistake. The happiness is there. We're meant to be happy. There's no problem. By nature, we are peaceful. But when we mistake the material enjoyment with the happiness, when we think that the material enjoyment is the cause of happiness, that's a very big ignorance. And then the last thing is that the last manifestation of your ignorance or tamas, the background of our existence in this material world, is that we take something which is not me to be me. Something which is actually not I am to be myself. I am this body. So that's the tamas. And this tamas, the next covering of ignorance, according to this scheme, is moha, which is illusion I am this body. When you get this general understanding of ignorance, when your consciousness is generally perverted by this ignorance, you get the most specific manifestation of ignorance. I am this particular body, not his body, not Narahari Chaitanya's body. Somehow or other I can enjoy his body, but I have my body. I am this. So asmita, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. This is the 5 clashes, 5 causes of ignorance, according to Patanjali Muni, and this is exactly corresponds to these 5 coverings of ignorance, which are nothing but 5 causes of our sufferings in this material world. Because what is clash? Clash is something which creates klishta samskaras. There are aklishta samskaras and klishta samskaras. Samskaras which cause sufferings. What happens actually, it's very important point to understand. When we have this ignorance, the general ignorance within our consciousness, within our heart, then this ignorance creates certain waves, certain thoughts in our mind which are the cause of suffering. It creates certain mentalities, certain, while interacting with this world, if we are ignorant, we will necessarily, 100% guarantee, we will interact with this world, with the people of this world, and so on and so forth, in the way which will create some sufferings. Does any one of you experience sometimes some sufferings? Some agitation in the mind, some unhappiness in the mind. It's because of this aklishta samskaras, the bad samskaras in the mind, which creates certain sort of interactions. You enter into some interaction with some people, and it becomes very unpleasurable, very unhappy. As a result. So this is the clashes are cause of klishta samskaras within our mind. And there is some aklishta samskaras, some good samskaras, which we actually create when we engage in sadhana and spiritual practice. It actually gives you happiness. It really gives you a lot of enjoyment and happiness. So coming back to this asmita, which corresponds to moha here, to the illusion, as Prabhupada explains here, asmita means I am this body. Asmi means I-ness, or sometimes it's called ahankar. In Sankhya it's called ahankar. In yoga, it's called asmita, I-ness. I'm the conception that I'm this body, the forgetfulness of the soul. It's actually very interesting. Vishwanath Chakravarti, while commenting on the verse from the 12th chapter of the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he asks the question, how these 5 coverings of ignorance correspond to 2 functions of Maya. We all know that Maya or avidya vritti of Maya, avidya function of Maya has only 2 functions. The first function is avaranatmika Shakti, the Shakti which covers over our consciousness. And the second one is prakshepatmika Shakti or vikshepatmika Shakti, as Prabhupada very interestingly translates as throwing potency. It's basically projecting potency. First, our consciousness is covered, and then it's projected on the body. First, we have to forget that we are spirit soul. First, we forget that I'm eternal spirit soul, which is being born. We forget about our previous life, about previous experience, about previous death. We have to start anew. How would you enjoy the life if you would remember all your death? And if you would know that you will die again and again and again and again by doing this, there's no chance of you enjoying. So therefore, the ignorance is there. The first thing, your consciousness is covered, avaranatmika Shakti. And then, not only you forget that you're soul, then you have to identify with something. So the vikshepatmika Shakti comes into play and projects your consciousness into the body. We're so tightly connected with this body. It's a nice theory, I'm not this body. But when we come to the mirror, we immediately forget about this nice theory. That's me. That's me. Yes, I recognize myself. That's me. This is my nose. This is my ears. This is my beautiful lotus eyes. This is me. This is the second function of Maya, avidya Shakti of Maya. Avidya Shakti of Maya, vikshepatmika or prakshepatmika. We identify with it. So literally speaking, that's it. There is no need for five coverings of ignorance. The two are enough, right? But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he is quoting Vishnu Swami, the founder of Rudra Sampradaya, who explains very interestingly that yes, these two functions, they are first functions of ignorance. First of all, your consciousness or your mind is covered by this avaranatmika shakti or this avidya which we just described. Then it is projected on the matter. You identify with the matter. You completely, totally, completely identifying it with the matter and try to enjoy this. But then the three others, they are further manifestation or further development of this Prakshipatmika Shakti or Vikshipatmika Shakti. This Vikshipatmika Shakti doesn't stop there. First, Vikshipatmika Shakti, Avaranatmika Shakti makes you forget that you're the soul, which we still don't remember. You know, we all know the Hinasminyatade, we all preach it, but we don't really identify ourselves with the soul. It's just a nice theory for us. Why? Because Vikshipatmika Shakti is so strongly makes us to identify with the body. But the further development of this, further functions of this Vikshipatmika Shakti is Ragadvesha Abhinivesha, or after Moha there is Mahamoha, and after Mahamoha there is Tamisra, and after Tamisra there is Anta-Tamisra. So this is all, this four. The first one is the function of Avaranatmika Shakti, the covering potency of Avidya. The four other ones, they're the different manifestations, so yes, different functions of Vikshipatmika Shakti. How this identification with the body works, how it really takes place in our life. So what is happening, you identify with the body, asmita, I am this body, and then raga comes. Raga means attachment. Attachment to the enjoyment, attachment to the happiness, attachment to this experience, pleasurable experience, which we have. And this body, you know, it gives us a lot of pleasurable experience. You know, you can pet yourself. you can do so many things. You can smell nice smell. You can see beautiful images in the internet. You know, it's so attractive. You can hear a nice voice. Somebody sent me some pop singer recently, and I listened to him. It's just really amazing. Some Russian singer. You know, he sings by male voice, beautifully sings by male voice, and all of a sudden he goes really high, and the same person starts singing by total beautiful female voice. It's so amazing. I was listening and I was thinking, you know, so nice. So this is how it is. You know, the body gives you facilities to enjoy, and you become attached to this. And we're all attached. We're all attached. Of course, hopefully we're attached to prasadam, but honestly speaking, we're attached to pizza, whether it's offered or not offered, or dosas in South India, giving the gesture to the local culture. You know, whether it's offered or not offered, it's a detail. The main point is to have nice dosa. So this is how we're attached. We are attached. This is raga. We're attached to these experiences which body gives to us. And that's solidifies our attachment to the body. We already think I'm this body. And all these experiences, when we say, oh, so nice, so nice, so nice. You know, and we're overeating with that, take 10 doses, and it becomes the cause of suffering. So, anyway, what I want to say is that your identification with the body becomes solidified by this raga. But even more so, the identification with the body becomes solidified or becomes fixed by tamisra, by dvesha. Raga is there. First is avidya, then is asmita or moha, then mahamoha. It's beautifully called here, mahamoha. What is this ignorance? You know, moha, you identify with the body, but then when you identify with the enjoyment which the body gives, it's maha illusion. When you just identify with the body, it's not so bad. But when you start identifying with the enjoyment which body brings, with all these nice, pleasurable things, and you absorb your consciousness in this enjoyments, that's mahamoha. That's great illusion. But then tamisra comes. Tamisra means, Prabhupada explains it here, when you encounter the anger, and he explains it in that purport, for the second verse from the 12th chapter of the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada explains what is anger. Anger is the energy which is automatically generated in our consciousness when we encounter some obstacle to our enjoyment. You get raga. And inevitably this material world is created in such a way that you will get some obstacles. You're attached to certain enjoyment, but then you'll get some obstacles to this. You know? And to destroy this obstacle, to counteract this obstacle, to get your way to the enjoyment, the energy of anger is being generated within the mind. It's a destructive energy. How dare he can, how dare he be an obstacle to my enjoyment? How dare he said to me this? He said to me this. This is. She said to me this. This is ridiculous. This is so bad. This energy of destructive energy which is generated within our consciousness is this tamisra. And, when we analyze honestly and sincerely what is going on within our heart, we can very sadly understand that we are attached to anger, to negative emotions, more than to the pleasurable emotions, to the positive emotions. We can get some nice enjoyment and we are happy because of this enjoyment. But for how long it lasts? Few minutes. You have the nice mood, you enjoyed something. But when somebody creates an obstacle for your position in this world, offends you, says something which you don't want to hear, or inflicts some pain, especially mental pain to you, or say something that you're stupid or something, you will be attached to this negative feelings for months and months and months, or at least for days, or at least for one day. You will only for one day and one night, because you will not sleep this night. If somebody offends you really seriously, you will the whole night you will quarrel with him. You will try to prove that he's stupid himself, and that he's bad, and he's so bad, and he's terrible. So this tamisra means very bad ignorance. Moha, you're bewildered. Maha moha, you're more bewildered. Tamisra, you're blinded. Literally people, when they experience very strong emotion of anger, they become blind. Temporarily, when we have, people, when they experience this anger, that can kill anyone. Even if it's their own wife, even if it's their own husband, because of this blinding power of anger. Anger has certain neurotransmitters created in the mind, and literally it creates an experience of total forgetfulness. Therefore, Krishna says that Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha. From Krodha Bhavati Sammoha. Complete forgetfulness is coming to you. Krodha blinds you. Therefore, it's called Tamisra here. When people they forget everything, they have to satisfy this emotion of anger. And it becomes a very big problem, So, again, it's a very important point. We become attached to this body more through negative emotions than through the positive emotions. And therefore, people, when they die, they think about, usually people, when they become old, they're more concentrated on the negative emotions which are accumulated in their life. I didn't do this was so bad. And therefore they start fantasizing. If it was not like this, I would be happy. And that's how they're creating their next life. That was so bad, I failed here, and I failed there, and because of this failure, and because of some obstacles, and about this, that becomes the cause of their meditation. The negative emotions are much more powerful causes of our absorption of mind, meditation. We are basically in samadhi about all the bad things which we experienced in our life. We constantly think about that, especially when we become old. I experience it myself. When you're young, you're so positive. But later in life, you become more and more negative. And all these negative emotions are being accumulated and built up in your psyche, in your consciousness, in your heart, and become really the cause of suffering and the cause of false identification with the body. And you cannot remember about Krishna, and you cannot chant his holy name when you're concentrated on the negative emotions. Just try to chant the holy name when somebody offended you. Yes, you will chant the holy name, but you will think about him, not about the Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. You will not be able to think about it. But then the worst thing is happening. So we have tamas, the general darkness of our consciousness, the general unclearness of our consciousness. Then we have moha, then we have more severe maha moha, then we have even more severe layer, which completely forces us to identify with the body, which is the mishra, and ultimately the crown jewel of ignorance is antata mishra. Complete total blindness of identification with the body and the fear of death. This fear of death, Abhinivesh in yoga terminology, in Patanjali's terminology, Abhinivesha is the most dangerous thing. There was one, I believe it's Jefferson, one of the founding fathers of America. He said that there's nothing to fear in this world. There's only one thing which you should fear in this world. You should only fear the fear. The only thing which is really fearful is the fear itself. Because when you become fearful, oh, this is the most bewildering, the most ignorant condition in the world. And when you become fearful of losing your body, you cannot really think about God. Because you become so attached through this negative emotion of fear. You know, fear is a very fearful, fearsome thing. There's actually, there's a nice story. I have to finish now. I'm really sorry for being so long. So, a nice little story there. It's a real story, real reincarnation story, one can say, or near-death experience story about one lady, Indian lady who lived abroad, Anita Murjani. You can find her story in the net, who became fearful of cancer because her friend died of cancer in rather young age. And she started meditating on this because of the fear. Fear is so absorbing. She couldn't get out of her system. She was just meditating on the fear of cancer. And sure enough, she got cancer because you get what you meditate on. If you meditate upon Yam Yam Vatiswaram Bhavam, Tyajatan Kadavaram, even during the lifetime, if you meditate on something very deeply, you will get it. It's not a problem. You know, if you want cancer, you will get cancer. Just think about cancer all the time. No problem. So she got cancer, and she was really, she was suffering like anything she was fighting with this cancer and becoming more and more fearful and panicking. And for 4 years she was suffering, and ultimately she became a skeleton. Fourth stage of cancer, she became completely, there was no life in her. And, she was admitted in the hospital, and the doctors, it's a very well-documented medical case, her case. Doctors said there's absolutely no chance for her to live. She has maybe a few minutes to live. Please come to her, say goodbye to her, or whatever it is. Her brother was flying in the boarding the plane and trying to say farewell to her, and this whole drama. Her husband was there, children were there, and then she had near-death experience. She realized, I'm not this body. She actually met or hurt her friend or something like this. I don't remember the details. It's not so important. But she realized this simple thing, I'm not this body. And somehow or other she came back to this skeleton body. And miraculously, the skeleton body, which didn't have any chances to live, became hale and healthy again. After some time, because of her consciousness changed. But very important episode of her life, she said, she explains it herself. After a few days after this near-death experience, when somehow or other she survived, she was on a wheelchair because she couldn't move, she couldn't walk. And she asked the nurse to take her to the corridor, and she saw the mirror, and she saw her own reflection in the mirror, horrible reflection. And she looked at this reflection, and she said to herself, this is what your fear, this is what you did to yourself by your fear. This is the result of your fear. She realized it very well. So the point which I'm trying to make is that why fear is under the Mishra. Why it is the most blinding thing which is there? Because it really makes us forget everything. It's a very strong emotion. It's a very, animalistic emotion. Very deeply rooted emotion. The fear the emotion of the fear, if you study the neurophysiology or the physiology of your brain, it's within the very deep roots of our brain. It's in the stem portion of the brain. That's where the fear is generated. The identification with the body, and therefore it's so strong. It's much stronger than all other emotions which we experience. And therefore it's under the Mishra. It totally, completely, miserably forces you to identify with the body without any chances. So before you experience this fear of death, it's better if you realize that I'm not this body. Dhirastatrana mukhyati. At that moment, Dhira, who realized that he is not this body, he will not become bewildered. He will not become bewildered by this emotion, powerful emotion of antatamisha, of this ignorance, covering of ignorance. Anyway, I'm really sorry I'm already late. So I tried to explain this according to Rishana Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Prabhupada and this other verse, giving some other perspective on this meanings of the coverings of ignorance. Thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai ki jai, Shri Nrsimha Dev ki jai.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for very nicely explaining this five types of coverings of ignorance with examples and stories. But if you can also enlighten how to overcome this 5 layers of ignorance. There is a question coming here also that what can we do to reduce negative emotions so that it doesn't overwhelm us during the old age?
Yes, we have to understand that this is the root cause of all negative emotions, of everything. The root cause is avidya. The root cause is this general ignorance which we have. And we can try to work on the outcomes, the fruits of this avidya, but ultimately, and that's what people usually do when they try to destroy the secondary fruits of avidya, but hardly anyone is trying to destroy the root cause of all problems, which is avidya. And ultimately, that's what we are trying to do by studying and by meditating, not only studying, but deeply meditating on the words of Srila Prabhupada, on the words of scriptures, of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Again and again and again, because these words have power to destroy the ignorance. And therefore, Prabhupada, he gave Sanskrit. Sanskrit is very important because Sanskrit, the vibrations of Sanskrit, Srila Prabhupada explains this, they have special power to destroy the ignorance. Therefore, we shouldn't only read the translation and purports, we should also read the verses themselves. Prabhupada beautifully put this for us, not to neglect this. Otherwise, he would just give some English translation. No, and they're all important because the holy name, the vibration of the holy name, and the vibration of the scriptures, and of course the association with the devotees, they have the power to destroy the root cause of all the problems, which is ignorance, which is covering us, the consciousness on a very deep level and forces us to forget it by the spirit soul. And we all know, all of a sudden, we at one point we hear something and then we have this wow experience. Yes, it doesn't last long, but still we have this experience. Yes, I'm the spirit soul, yes. There's nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear. I just have to take shelter of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Why should I fear? Krishna is kind, he is beautiful, he is so nice. And I'm trying to take shelter of him. This impetus comes. Where it's coming from? Not from the ignorant mind. Not from the rajasic intelligence. It's coming from the soul. From the soul proper. And when we chant in this consciousness, then we'll realize very soon. I have to go, unfortunately. So, finish it now. I'm still here for some time. So.
Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So let's thank His Holiness Bhakti Maharaj